Hello, everyone. Not sure if we're really live at this point. We're trying a new streaming platform, and well, let's just say since it's 12:18, things are not going as planned. So I'm waiting to see if we get any kind of confirmation that we're actually live on any of our platforms. I'd hate to do a whole episode realizing that we weren't quite connected yet. So I'm going to give it just a second here. All right, maybe Lori, you could check to see if we have any. And Lori, did you take yourself off the stream? Because I can't hear you. Or... Oh, are you there? There you
There
are.
we go. Yep.
Okay.
I didn't take. Did you hear me at all?
No,
Because I
not really.
did see us go on YouTube
Okay.
and
Oh, no, I see there's
on.
people watching. Okay.
Oh, good.
There's at least a few. So, all right. Oh, great. Well, that is strange. How did we do that? Okay. So I think those are from YouTube. Looks like we got Robert Bose. Awesome. And the Liberty Cause.
Wow, been a while.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Hello, Robert. It's been a long time since I've seen you or talked to you, in person anyway. Glad that you could join us today. So, well, thank you for those of you who are joining us right now. We are streaming, like I said, today through a different platform. So, a lot of bumps along the way, but I have some good information for you today. Of course, I wouldn't be wasting your time if I didn't think I was going to impart upon you something that you needed to know. But I guess I should start by saying to those of you who are catching us on this live stream who have not seen us before, I am constitutional attorney Catherine Henry, and this is Liberty Lori. And you are joining us today for our 37th episode of Restore Freedom Weekly. It's a show that we started this year to have a regular way to get information to you, the public, about laws and constitutional provisions and court cases and bills that are pending and things like that. So we had been doing hundreds and hundreds of live videos and live presentations all through 2020 and 2021. And this was a way that we could come together every single week to give you updates on a regular day and time. So anyway, thank you for joining us today, and welcome to those of you who are brand new, catching us on Twitter, LinkedIn, Twitch, or any of the other platforms that we are now streaming to. And of course, hello and thank you for joining us once again to our favorites and those we are used to seeing from YouTube and Rumble and Facebook. Things are going to get a little different around here. In fact, starting today, if technology is working a little bit better this afternoon than it has been today, then we will also be streaming this episode and all future episodes on platforms like Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, and the rest. So again, thank you for bearing with us today. It's been a little bit of a bumpy ride so far, but we're about to get started here. And normally at this stage, this is where I would do my intro video. That is the Pledge of Allegiance. So given that we started quite late, I'm actually going to skip that today and get right on into the specifics. I do want to make sure, well, normally I would have had the Restore Freedom Weekly big logo that appeared at some point here, but apparently I lost that too. So anyway, it's totally different software and a little much to learn, I guess. But oh, okay, great. It looks like, yep, we have people. I just figured out where you guys. Oh, Laura Beard, hi. Sue's Zoo, and those of you watching all around, but especially in Michigan, hello, and thank you for joining today. So, all right, we are going to go ahead and get started. I had been doing some like PowerPoint presentations or Google Slides presentations that I was showing in the live stream, but helped those of you who are more visual learners and not necessarily ones that can just hear it and take it all in. But unfortunately, this platform does not allow for the automatic uploading of the Google Slides or any other type of thing like that. I could just do a screen share. And with all the other technical glitches and even spilling my protein shake all over my face right before we went live and everything like that, I didn't have a chance to get that connected. So do bear in mind that on Thursday, we will go ahead and air our Constitution segment recap for you. In fact, hopefully, this week we will be getting back to a video version of a Constitution segment recap that will give you the very, Cliff Notes version of what we're doing here today. But then I will have an attachment for you that's either a PDF or a Google spreadsheet, or excuse me, a Google slideshow, something like that. It's a tangible thing that you'll be able to open up on your phone or your computer and be able to read the different constitutional provisions and statutes, if relevant, to our topic of the week. So hopefully this new format will make it easier for those of you who like to see and have that interaction to be able to learn about important topics. Those of you who do well just hearing it like you were sitting in a classroom, as well as those of you who like to see something in front of you. So, and I forgot what our question of the day was. True or false? Lori, can you tell us,
Okay.
how did I write that today?
Oh, you're expected me to be ready too.
Well, while you're looking for that, I realized
about.
Well, you go ahead and look for that. I realized I also didn't start with the title. Those of you on certain platforms can see the title of the video today, but those of you who might just be catching something that's live and found us that way, today we're covering unconstitutional court orders. Are you required to follow unconstitutional court orders? So basically,
That was a true or false question.
yeah. So, is that all I made the question? Are you required to follow an unconstitutional court order? Okay. I'm trying to keep it simple, I guess. So that was our true or false question of the day. We'll circle back to that, but I'm going to invite you to go ahead and hop onto our YouTube channel, our Twitter, Truth Social, our website, a variety of places where we have the true or false question of the day. Go ahead and answer that poll. Telegram and others, go ahead and answer that poll now. And you guys will hear the sneak peek of the answer throughout this episode and certainly at the end. But keep in mind that if you ever just catch the question and don't have a chance to listen to the full episode, you could check back after 10 o'clock on Tuesday, 10 o'clock in the evening, and you will see the answer posted on the social media platforms where the question is posted. So please make sure to join in with us every week to participate that way. But to be a little bit more in depth about what our topic is today, we're covering, like I said, these possible, the situations you might find yourself in where a judge has issued a blatantly unconstitutional order. Are you required to follow it? What are your options in those situations? And then I mentioned gag orders, unwanted medical procedures, denials of public information like FOIA requests. But we're going to talk about real life examples and the practical limitations for what happens when you have an unconstitutional order. And I just realized I wore this shirt just for our debut on all these new platforms today. And I realized that none of you can quite see it, but it's a nice Restore Freedom shirt. So anyway, please make sure to let us know if you, especially if you are in Michigan and you would like to connect with our good friend, Rachel Atwood, who is in West Michigan and has the last, say 24 of various kinds of these shirts available. Let us know because we can connect you, and we would love to have you help support us in that way. So All right. I want to start with the basics. I'll say again, because those of you who have been tuning in every week have heard some of these concepts over and over again. Quite frankly, if you listen to several of my speeches, like Robert Bose, I'll pick on him. I know that he was there at various events throughout 2020 and probably into 2021 that he had the opportunity to hear me give several different live speeches. And so he probably heard me say some of these things, if not all of them, several times. But they're important and they're things that we take for granted. So we're going to start again with these basics. We have a government of the people, by the people, and for the people. It's not just a slogan, it's actually our whole system of government. We as individuals, we get our rights from God. We don't get our rights from the government. Sure, there might be some logistical rights about, excuse me, voting at age 18 versus not voting at 17 or things of that nature. But I'm talking about your right to life, your right to liberty, your right to property, your right to equal protection under the law, your right to basic things. Those are rights that are given to us by God, not the government. Government has absolutely no rights. So I'm sorry to offend you if you're one of those states' rights advocates, but you'll need to reread the 10th Amendment if that's the case, because the word rights is nowhere in the 10th Amendment. Rights are mentioned in, well, the first 9 amendments, but specifically in the 9th Amendment. And the 10th Amendment is talking about delegation of powers. So that's right. Government has absolutely no rights, and it has only those powers which we delegate to it in the Constitution. So government may not act at all unless there is a specific power delegated to it in the Constitution. And I'm going to pause here just for a moment. Lori, I lost you for a second. Are you
Yeah.
able to add yourself back in when it bounces out, or do I need to do that for you?
I think I can. You were in the middle of something, so I didn't want to freak people out.
Well, I'll leave you in because Lori, just in case, for those of you who don't know, Lori's been alongside my freedom fight from the beginning of 2020. In fact, I think, excuse me, I believe that Lori and I met around like May 23rd, 2020. And so she was there from the beginning of the Restore Freedom Initiative petition, the documents and the, sorry guys, I'm struggling today. Filing briefs and arguing in the Michigan Supreme Court against the governor's executive orders, all of the things along the way. Lori has been there through all that. And so not only is Lori super important in that regard, but she's also helping me because, quite frankly, I hate social media. I hate live streams. I hate having to speak in front of people. In fact, the very first time I spoke in front of a large crowd was April 30th, 2020, on the steps of the Michigan Capitol, when there were thousands of people there and hundreds of thousands, if not millions, live streaming through all the different streaming that was happening that day. And right before I went on stage, I went up to 2 women that I had known for years, and I said, "Oh my gosh, I'm going to puke. Could you pray for me?" And within 30 seconds, I was then on the stage speaking to everyone. So this is not my favorite thing to do, but I'm called to impart my knowledge and my experience and expertise, if I dare say, on the law and the Constitution and in matters of government to help we the people retain our power and protect and defend our liberty and, quite frankly, our very form and way of government. So at any rate, because I am not so good at all of the social media aspects and live streaming, clearly, and everything else, Lori is here to help interject if she sees somebody is commenting on something that needs to be talked about. So in case you guys wonder why I do most of the talking, Love the subtitles.
See who it's from?
Yeah, I do. Hi. First of all, I'm just gonna say I love you. And for those of you who know some of a little bit about me and not everything about me, no, I'm not saying that to some other man because Mike is my husband. But Bruce Reed is my father, so I am super excited that I have someone in my family who's supporting me in this way and joining us today. So. I don't know what subtitles we have though, so I guess I'm gonna have to.
I think he meant our names.
Oh.
Constitutional, Catherine, Liberty, Lori.
Awesome. Okay, so let's see. Anyway, so yes, Lori is going to throw up on the screen all of the comments and questions and whatever else that we might have. I'm not sure what platforms actually show. I know that if you're on Rumble and you're commenting, we can't display that, and hopefully we'll catch it because unfortunately with that technology, our TMP connections, we don't get the comments to come through to here. But at least Facebook and YouTube, and I believe Twitch, Twitter, and LinkedIn would probably show up as well. So please comment and let us know you're there if you're on one of those platforms as well.
We do have people watching on Rumble, so it's just uh-oh.
Uh-oh. Whatever that was, Lori, don't do that again.
I didn't do anything.
Oh. You didn't click anything?
I was checking. No, I was saying hello on Rumble because we have some people watching, but that's all I clicked on. I didn't click on anything on here.
Well, something happened and it threw us right out. So hi, everyone. We're still here. Okay, so we're going to get right back into things. Oh, and there's my handsome husband commenting on YouTube. So I love you, babe, and thanks for joining us as well. By the way, I was calling you right at noon when the thermostats were stuck at 89 degrees. So you should have answered that call. But anyway, so getting back to things. So again, these are the basics, okay? We talked about, we have rights. The government doesn't have rights. The government only has powers, but powers that are delegated to it by we the people through the Constitution. So government cannot take any action, again, unless there is specific power delegated to it in the Constitution. And government's main purpose and responsibility is to protect our God-given liberties. Now, what does that mean? Well, basically, in my exercise of my rights, that I'm not going to infringe or impede upon your exercise of your rights. If Lori and I are neighbors, I'm not going to do something on my property that is doing some demo or cutting trees or something like that, where I'm going to turn around and put all that debris onto her property. I'm not going to impede upon her use of her own property. So government's job is to protect our God-given liberties. That's what it's there for, so that when you have two diverging interests, but both are founded in some sort of a right, then the government's job is to help essentially referee that or mediate that, to sort that out so that we can freely exercise our own rights without worry that somebody else is going to trample those liberties, and that it's essentially a free-for-all. So now getting into the topic of the day, where we're talking about unconstitutional court orders. We need to start again with one of the basics, a premise that I know we've all heard this one, but have we really let it sink in? Because I know most judges, justices, attorneys, government officials, 99.9% of them all across the US have not really let this sink in. The Constitution is the supreme law of the land. So what does this mean? Well, no federal law, no state constitutional provision, no court order, or any government action can be, repugnant to the Constitution. Well, in other words, any law state constitutional provision, court order, or government action that is repugnant to the Constitution is void. Right then and there. It's like it never even existed. Well, what are some of the rights that we're talking about? So we have, so many things that I could talk about that, of course, my mind grows blank at times. But, we have the right to have contracts with other people. We have the right so that governments will not impair our ability to have and follow through on contracts. That's protected in the Constitution. We have the right to equal protection under the law. We have the right to assembly, consultation, petition, free speech, the free exercise of religion or worship. We have the right against unreasonable searches and seizures. We have, all of our unenumerated rights. We have, rights, privacy from government. We have rights against bills of attainder or, just all kinds of rights, right? Those are some of the main topics. So let's think about those three examples I talked about. So gag orders, unwanted medical procedures, and denial of public information or FOIA requests. So let's break that down. Gag orders. Well, we talked about that in a prior episode. It was either last week, a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, like 2 weeks, I think.
So gag orders are essentially where the judge has told someone, a party or someone in the media, you cannot publish a video or an article or photos about what's going on in this court proceeding. You just can't do it at all. It's not that there was something very specific or detailed, maybe some very private matters regarding, things with children or something of that nature. I mean, where there's a specific, legitimate, thought out reason where there was notice and opportunity to be heard on that or anything like that. It's a gag order is right off the top. You cannot share information about what's going on in court. Okay, so what about unwanted medical procedures? Well, a case comes to mind. I mean, I did family law in 2 different states, Michigan and Minnesota, for several years. And family law was actually I remember saying to my law professor in law school that I was always going to do family law and only family law. And she said, well, you can't do that. You're going to burn yourself out. Well, I didn't actually burn myself out from family law. It's just that our government decided that they didn't want to follow the laws or the Constitution, and so I've had to take a different route. But at any rate, in February of 2020, I filed a brief in the Michigan Supreme Court. Now get this, it's February 2020. Think of what you were doing February 2020. Did you really think anything about COVID? Did you think anything about that it would ever be possible that our entire country would essentially have shut down or lockdown orders in place, that people would be ordered to stay in their homes, that they would be ordered that they can't go to work, that their businesses would have to be shut down, that they'd be ordered to not go to church, that they would literally be ordered to stay in their homes under penalty of law? Did you ever think in February of 2020 that would ever be such a thing? I did not. I mean, not in this country and not in this century, did I? But yet, in February of 2020, I was filing an amicus brief on a case where I was representing Physicians for Informed Consent, a nationwide legitimate organization. If you haven't heard of them, look them up. They're really awesome. They have a lot of information. They're all about informed consent, right? Especially as it pertains to the medical side of things. So at any rate, that brief that I submitted was actually on a custody case. Custody decisions, medical decisions. It was essentially out of a divorce case. And, fast forward 4 years down the road. Anyway, you have this situation where the mom had, I don't remember the exact details. Some of the details won't matter, but in general, sole physical and sole legal custody, and father had some shared parenting time, but the sole physical and sole legal custody was with mom. And specifically, legal custody, for those of you who don't know, that's going to be your ability to make educational decisions, religious decisions, medical decisions. It's the big stuff. It's not just the day-to-day, rules about chores, or if the kid's going to soccer practice this day, or if the kid stays home from school because they're sick, or their grandmother's in town, or something like that. So at any rate, that is in this case that we're talking about, it's the specifics of that issue was unwanted medical procedures. And specifically in this case, and hopefully if she's watching or finds this video later, she's cool with the way that I'm explaining this. You know who you are, and I'm pretty sure you would want the fight for freedom to continue with educating people on these real world examples. But at any rate, so her daughter was 4 years old and was immunocompromised. She was immunocompromised, is immunocompromised. And the dad, who had no legal custody, was asking the court to force her to get the child all of the childhood vaccines from birth to 4 years old, because at that point she was 4. So she hadn't had any, to give her all of them. And the trial court ordered that mom had to do that, and had to do them like basically all at once. So even the CDC, the FDA, the vaccine manufacturers, pediatricians, doctors everywhere would say, well, no, you can't. Even those that strongly advocate to follow that rigid, ever-expanding schedule of vaccines would never say get all of them all at once. No, you can't do that. But anyway, so even on an otherwise healthy child, that would have been dangerous. But anyway, in this situation, they also were acknowledging that there are, some risks. Okay, but the Court of Appeals, I mean, in my brief, there was a huge paragraph, or basically a whole page from the Court of Appeals decision, where they're acknowledging all the risks and the possibilities of death and everything else, and still ordered the court or the mom to go through with this. To get
before you call it a shot.
Okay, shot.
Because we're on YouTube. I didn't actually catch it right away either.
I never know what words are safe anymore. But at any rate, so the situation though in this case is that the trial judge said, yeah, it doesn't matter that you have primary, legal decision-making skills for this child. It doesn't matter that you are immunocompromised, that your child is immunocompromised. It doesn't matter what the schedules say for these, but you need to go ahead and get all these and get them now. And Court of Appeals affirmed that. So in the Supreme Court, we are asking the Supreme Court to take the case. And essentially, one of my biggest arguments came out of the Court of Appeals decision that affirmed that horrible decision. But I then went to all the manufacturers of the shots and looked at their information. That's on the FDA website. And by the way, I did a whole episode on that. And YouTube pulled that down. So you can find it on Rumble and Facebook. But that episode was taken down because apparently the FDA is full of medical misinformation. Who knew? So anyway,
I think that was episode 2 even.
Yeah, it was something
2 or
early
3.
on.
So in January for people looking.
Right. So for those of you who don't know the medical sides of things, especially for those that are immunocompromised, there's obviously the like Physicians for Informed Consent. The main thing is that if there's any kind of risk, there must be choice, right? If there's any kind of medical procedure, you need to be informed about it and then give consent, informed consent, Physicians for Informed Consent, right? Well, for those of you who don't know about immunocompromised individuals, the manufacturers of all of these drugs and even the FDA I'm not sure where the CDC stands on it at the time, but they actually advocate um, for those who are immunocompromised to not get most of these, possibly all of these. The specifics escape me at the top of my mind right now, but most, if not all of them, say don't get this if you're immunocompromised. Okay. Well, what's worse is that on top of the individual who would be given that shot, if you are then around others who are immunocompromised, these manufacturers say, don't get these shots if you are going to be around people who are immunocompromised, because these are made with live viruses. These are made of all these kinds of things that essentially shed. There's a shedding that happens. And so even if the mom doesn't have any of these unwanted medical procedures done to her directly, being there around her daughter, she would then have those adverse medical reactions. Now, you guys can look all that up. You can watch that episode to find out more about that information. Again, this is not conspiracy theorist stuff. This literally is from those manufacturers. And it's available through the FDA. Go at fda.gov, and I show you in that prohibited video, I show you where to find that on the FDA and where to find it in those manufacturers' inserts. I want to say it's usually section 13.1 that's talking about different things that they haven't studied, like mutagenic potential, carcinogenic potential, all that kind of stuff. But at any rate, so that's a situation, okay? So that's a situation where you have, and that's, I think, an extreme situation, but where you have unwanted medical procedures. Now, we've seen lots of other things, shots for certain things that happened in 2020, 2021, right? There was the court cases that came out this year from the U.S. Supreme Court about the mandatory shots and everything like that, mask policies, all that kind of stuff. We're not going to go into details of that, but because the censorship issues in time, but just think of all those things. So even if you are not immunocompromised, or even if you don't really have an opinion about shots, but there's all these other things that might be in the medical realm where we're seeing unending amounts of unwanted medical procedures. Okay, so in fact, there was that bill 5672 that we brought up again recently. That was a House Bill 5672 out of the Michigan House of Representatives in 2020, that the vast majority of, I think, all but two legislators voted in favor of the bill, which essentially said, certain private entities or employers can't require you to have a microchip inserted as a condition of employment, but courts can still order you to be microchipped. You said, what? And of course, people like Jack O'Malley in the UP of Michigan, a state rep who thinks he's God's gift to we the people, and definitely would go back and forth with me when I would do these videos, and he had ruffled his feathers a bit. Anyway, he was one that justified it, saying, well, it could be terms of probation, or part of release in a criminal case, because criminals should be treated like cattle instead of like humans. At any rate, so unwanted medical procedures, it could be any of those. So we talked about gag orders, unwanted medical procedures. What about denial of public information? Well, we have a government of the people, by the people, and for the people. There's tons of federal statutes that we've done a video about before on accessing public information. But oftentimes your state constitution is going to have some information about the people's right to access information. I know the Florida State Constitution has that. And in Michigan, FOIA, or Freedom of Information Act, requests are part of statutes. But, and there's to some degree some coverage in the Michigan Constitution, but not as much as there would have been if the Restore Freedom Initiative petition had been put into place. So at any rate, put yourself in a situation where you are asking for some government information and the government entity denies it, and you go to court and you are appealing it, or whatever the legal procedure is that in your state that gets you in front of a judge, and the judge says, nah, That's a public record, but nah, they don't have to give it to you. Let's say, for example, it's about, just generalized government records about certain things, and there's no secrecy or privacy interests involved. Like, we're not asking for disclosure of anybody's social security number or bank accounts or, anything like personal protected identifying information, nothing like that. Just usual course of business government types of records. And the judge says no. Well, those are three distinct types of situations: gag orders, unwanted medical procedures, and denial of public records or information. Those are three distinct things, and we'll kind of talk about those in a minute. But in the end, do you have to follow blatantly unconstitutional orders? No, you don't. I mean, the answer is no. If you've heard me ever speak at all, ever, the answer would be no. You don't have to follow them. But what does that really mean? So you're going to have your legal outcomes or your legal options, but you're also going to have logistically available options or things that are practical in nature. Okay, so it's important that we recognize this. Now, here's an example. I'll just give you one more example, and this is on the gag order situation. So in my Allegan County E-Day 2020 case, I'm trying to figure out which words to say and not say as we're going live on YouTube, but that case where I had the crap beaten out of me by 3 grown men, sheriff's deputies, who had the blessing of the sheriff himself and that town hall clerk and the chief prosecuting attorney. I was live streaming, mind you, so that actually kept things a little bit more in check. But the court case that came out of that, where yes, I was arrested illegally and unconstitutionally, I was prosecuted illegally and unconstitutionally, and the case was dragged out illegally and unconstitutionally for almost 2 years, just being dismissed 2 months ago on my husband's birthday. But in that situation, all along the way, my rights were being denied by the prosecutor and by the judge. I was being denied my right to be in the courtroom physically most of the times. I was being denied my right to have people present in the courtroom. That was only ever allowed once. I was denied my right to see people face to face. You have the right to see the face of your accusers and those in the courtroom. I was even denied ADA accommodations that had already been approved. And I was denied assistance of counsel. Yeah, I'm an attorney, but I'm not required to represent myself. I still have the same rights that everybody else does, which include having the right to assistance of counsel. And I had an attorney with me on February 4th, 2021, standing right there, licensed in Michigan to practice. And there we were in a Michigan court. And the judge was telling him to get out before the hearing even started because he didn't want, quote, witnesses, and said that anybody could live stream it if they wanted to. Keep in mind, the court's website specifically says that they delete all of these recordings from their YouTube channel as soon as the proceedings are done. Now, what kind of public eye is that really? So in my case, I had a case has been dismissed, finally. But I had asked the court for clarification of my rights to share the court videos, because I had to pay $20 for each DVD of each of the 9 hearings until that point of the proceedings of my case. And each time there was a pre-written form that was set up so that, yeah, you can have your request approved. And it's basically, in some respects, rubber stamping to get your request approved. But it says right on there that you shall not share the video with any other human being. Otherwise, you will be held under contempt of court. And when the judge issued that first one to me and gave me that copy of the first hearing, he circled contempt of court heavily on my copy, despite signing on the same day a request for the same DVD of the same court hearing by the media. They were not circled with contempt of court, but they were also given the same limitations. A member of the media who clearly asked for it under freedom of the press Well, and specifically spelled that out in his request, that it was a freedom of the press, that he was going to share this information, was granted a copy of the DVD, but he also was prohibited from sharing it with anyone. And we're talking about a DVD of the actual court hearing. Okay, so I filed the motion, I filed several motions for the last 2 years on this case about that issue. And most recently, I filed a motion again in August, and at the beginning of August, I believe. And then the judge set it for a hearing on September 1st or 2nd, but anyway, 2 weeks ago, and ordered that his gag orders would stay in place. And he wasn't even going to give me a written order to that effect. I mean, he has to. He absolutely has to give a court order to whatever he's doing. So anyway, there are specific things that I will be doing. Nothing about it. If the question on Facebook is, oh, the judge, yes, the judge was Judge William Balargian. It's spelled Bail Large on Balargian. And he's Allegan County District Court. I believe it's District 57. And you can find his YouTube channel. He has his own YouTube channel. And that is the judge that issued that, all of those orders, but who specifically currently still thinks of the court DVDs as court property that is not to be given public access. And literally told me that although I raised the issue, that I have a duty to inform the public as an attorney, as a constitutional officer, and as an attorney licensed in Michigan, I have a duty to protect and inform the public, and talk to him about, or at least informed him about, these shows that I do, informing the people about the law and the Constitution. He called it a reality show and basically cheap entertainment, and that the DVDs cannot be shared for those purposes because they are meant for appeals and things. Now, mind you, I also told him that I needed to be able to have access to this video unrestricted so that I could talk to a variety of people about exploring my legal options, whether any kind of appeals are needed at this point, but quite frankly, to pursue my lawsuit against Allegan County officials for all of this. In terms of what happened, but also all the other legal options that I might have against them or in the situation.
Now, technically, because of his order, if you wanted to consult with other people that you haven't specifically assigned as your attorney, you wouldn't be able to share that based on his order, right? I mean, that's what he's saying. So he's...
Yeah, that's exactly what he's saying. And the way that it's worded, it literally is saying I can't even share it with an attorney. I can't share it with my husband. I can't share it. I specifically mentioned that I have a specific, that I have a group of people, basically just trusted individuals and professionals that I wanted to consult with about my legal options at this point. And his answer is, nope, you can't share the DVD with anybody. I mean, it's totally unconstitutional. I mean, so I'm talking about the most blatantly unconstitutional things. I'm not talking about where somebody who is not well versed in the law or the Constitution says, there's a lot of, I'll just call them conspiracy theorists out there, although I've been called that too, but the extremist conspiracy theorists that say, oh, well, it's unconstitutional for, whatever, a township to pass any kind of ordinance. No, it's not unconstitutional for that, but there are specific kinds that would be unconstitutional. At any rate, I'm not talking about those situations. I'm talking about something that is completely, blatantly unconstitutional. So, do you have to follow those? No, but your legal options, like I mentioned earlier, and your logistically available or realistic options really depend on what's happening. So let's think about those three kinds of examples: gag orders, unwanted medical procedures being ordered, and the denial of public information or FOIA requests. In the first one, it's the government trying to prohibit you from doing something. We also talked last week about ordinances relating to pavers and ground covering, relating to fences, and ways to, just generally protect your property with common things like fences. And so in that video, we're talking about ways that the government is trying to stop you from doing something. Now, that's different from the next example about the unwanted medical procedures, where it's the government trying to force you to do something. That's different. Now, I guess I'll say, in some respects, some of the ordinances about ground covering or fences, in that sense, could be the government trying to force you to do something, like force you to get permits or do something in a certain way. But really, they're trying to prohibit you from laying the ground cover you see fit on your own property the way that you would like to do it without trying to get permission first. They're trying to prohibit you from installing a fence on your property, however you see fit, without getting permission first. Whereas, the government trying to force you to do something is to proactively, like if you don't want a fence and the government is saying you have to put a fence up, something like that. So there's a third example, though, a denial of a request for public information, or a FOIA request, Freedom of Information Act, or public records request, whatever. That is where a government entity or official is refusing to do something that it is required to do. So where a judge issues an order that essentially affirms, or perhaps it's the judge himself, that, for example, my ADA request for accommodation, that's asking the court to make, well, there's really some other of those aspects in there, but they're required by law and general due process to, make those reasonable accommodations for disabilities. And so the government was refusing to do something that it was required to do. So those are three totally different situations. What your legal options are and what your logistically available options are going to be different depending on which one of those things we're talking about. So, for example, some of your options would be follow the order and give up your God-given liberties. Who here would like to take that as the chosen path? I would sure as heck hope that even if I was able to physically see you guys right now, that not a single one of you would be raising your hand. So that's your first option, though, right? Is to just follow the order and give up your God-given liberties. You can simply not follow the order. Well, okay, as far as that option goes, that may work if you're trying to, if the government's trying to prohibit you from doing something and you're just going to go ahead and do it. You want to, right or wrong, you want to build a structure, a shed or something in your backyard, and the government says, no, you can't do that. And you go ahead and build it, something like that. Okay, you could just simply not follow the order and just go about your business. You could appeal to the next highest court. If it's in district court in Michigan, then you could go to, which I believe is essentially like a county court in Florida. You can then appeal to the circuit court. If you're in circuit court and you need to go higher from there, like it was a divorce case or something, and so you're in circuit court already, you appeal to the Court of Appeals, whatever. So you could appeal to the next highest court. You could file some sort of action like a quo warranto or writ of mandamus. Those are very specific things that I could bore you with right now. But actually, Lori, if there was anything that we should pull up regarding comments that have been coming on, or maybe questions, I'm going to grab the Black's Law Dictionary so I can make sure to get this part right.
Just a lot of people kind of talking back and forth, so there's nothing specific to share.
We're not trying to ignore you. If you are out there asking questions or making comments that you think should be shared, we're not trying to ignore you by any stretch of the imagination.
Well, and just so you know, I did check on LinkedIn. I'm watching on LinkedIn, and we had a hello from Adrian, so it's working on LinkedIn.
Oh, awesome. It just doesn't, the hello doesn't show on here, or it did?
No, it doesn't show on here.
That's a bummer. Okay.
Yeah. And I haven't checked the other platform, so if you're out trying to talk to us, sorry, we're getting used to this new way of doing it.
Oh, of course, I go all the way to writ, and it says, nope, go to mandamus. Okay, fine. And I don't know how to spell anymore. Good gracious, mandamus. You wouldn't think it'd be that hard. Okay. Mandamus. I know it's right here somewhere, right here. There it is. Okay. So mandamus, a writ issued by a superior court to compel a lower court or government officer to perform mandatory or purely ministerial duties correctly. So, you know, if you, you know, if there's something that, you know, you want to go to a higher court and essentially, especially if it's something like government refusing to do something that it is required to do, that's really the scenario where you're going to file a writ of mandamus or a petition for a writ of mandamus, where you're asking the higher court to order that lower court to do it, to release the records or to do whatever act it is supposed to do. It doesn't necessarily make sense to utilize that opportunity or option if you're in the scenario where you're just trying to just go about your business and the government's trying to stop you. But that is one of the options. And then I mentioned quo warranto. It better be in the queues if they send me somewhere else. I don't know where the Q is in the alphabet, though, because I just went to the T's for some reason. All right, quo warranto, a common law writ used to inquire into the authority by which a public office is held. So again, if that's something where basically if somebody takes office and they weren't legitimately put into that office, if somebody, I don't know, say like a public health officer in a county in Michigan didn't take the constitutional oath, then, you know, you could file a quo warranto action so that the government official who never took the constitutional oath is hauled into court, and there's basically a situation to expel them out of that office if they've failed to do something or they were required to do, such as take the constitutional oath of office. Okay, so that's what some of those options are. Now, it's a legal option. I mean, you're legally allowed to do this, but it's more of a practical option. You can campaign against the judge in the next election cycle. That's something that I think a lot of people who aren't used to taking on the government and all the bad that they do, they're not really used to taking that more of, I say, a proactive approach that, man, this judge sucks, and maybe the wheels of justice are turning slow in other respects. You know, let's really find someone who is a good candidate to run against this judge in the next election and campaign hard to get them taken out of office. You can report the judge to the Judicial Tenure Commission. I was doing voice to text on some notes a few minutes before the show today, and I just noticed that it said 10-year instead of tenure commission. But rest assured, if you are Googling it on your own later for your own state and you're looking for Judicial Tenure Commission, please make sure that you are looking for TENURE and not 10-year. But it might be called some other kind of branch, basically, that oversees judges, that there's a way to complain, like there's usually an attorney grievance commission. Perhaps it's called judicial grievance commission or something of that nature. But a forum that you can complain or file official complaints about specific actions for judges. And lastly, and there's probably a lot of other things, I'm just trying to give you the overall scope of different options, but you could file a civil rights complaint with the state or local government, or state or federal government, excuse me. So you could file, if there was some sort of denial of due process, or if there was actually a quote civil rights issue, you're denied housing, accommodations, access to government services, or something of that nature based on your race or your gender or something of that nature, or like I said, I mentioned ADA earlier, the rights you have under the disability acts in the federal government, as well as those put into place by state law. You have different grievance procedures or cases that you could bring out of those types of protections. So you have a wide gamut of opportunities. You can follow the order and just give up your God-given liberties. You can, by the way, if you're going to do that in a situation and there's no other logistical purpose for you to do that, please never reach out to be my friend or, try to hang out with me or talk to me like we're buds. If you ever see me, I just, that's not my thing. You can simply follow, you can simply not follow the order, just refuse to follow it. You can appeal to the next highest court. You can file some sort of specific, I'll say, unusual action like a quo warranto or writ of mandamus or something of that nature. You can actively campaign against the judge in the next election. You can report the judge to the Judicial Tenure Commission or Judicial Grievance Commission, whatever your state has for those. Or you could file some sort of complaint like a civil rights complaint or complaints in the various federal or state agencies, or go ahead and just file an outright civil lawsuit against the judge, depending on the scenario. So again, the scenario really focuses then on what is happening. Okay, so the three main types of things you're talking about are where the government is trying to prohibit you from doing something, where the government is trying to force you to do something, and where the government is refusing to do something that it is required to do. Now, in none of those situations are you legally bound to follow a court order until some higher court tells you otherwise. I literally had the Michigan AG candidate for the Republican Party right now. I'm hoping he no longer holds this belief, but in early December 2020, when he was fighting a nationally recognized particular case we won't mention here, I had done some updates actually on that case in prior videos this year. But at any rate, in early December 2020, when he found me through social media and asked that I call him, and we had this very long conversation about what the judge was doing in his case at that time. The judge was trying to essentially put into place a gag order that he was, on the one hand, required to share information with the Secretary of State and the Michigan Attorney General, even though they were not parties to the case. But on the other hand, the judge was simultaneously issuing a totally unconstitutional gag order saying that he was not allowed to release any of the audit information that he had procured and paid for and put into play. I mean, he and his client, right? Any of the material that they had, he was supposedly not allowed to share any of his own evidence with anyone else. What on earth? And he said to me, well, I know the judge doesn't have the right to do that, but you have to follow an unconstitutional order until a higher court tells you otherwise. And I'm here to tell you today, absolutely not. You are not legally, constitutionally required to follow any court order that is unconstitutional or illegal until somebody else tells you you don't have to, because we are sovereign. We are given our rights from God, and the government has no rights, and it has no power except the power that we have specifically delegated to it. So in the end, this means that literally, again, no federal law, no state constitutional provision, no court order, no government action that is repugnant to the Constitution can stand. In fact, any such law or state constitutional provision or court order or government action that is repugnant to the U.S. Constitution is void. Marbury versus Madison will give you a nice example of the description on this, or the discussion on this point, but it is void. It is literally, and I think these are the words out of that case, if not another 1800s case from the U.S. Supreme Court, but it is as though it did not even exist. And that's actually wording, I think, out of another case. But it's as though that act does not even exist. So you don't have to keep following something that doesn't exist, right? So at any rate, pretty simplistic, I guess.
It sounds like you're saying that all political power is inherent in the people. Is that what you're saying?
I am referencing Article 1, Section 1 of the Michigan State Constitution, the very first sentence of that, which is all political power is inherent in the people. I'm also referencing we, the people of the United States, in the preamble of the United States, as well as we, the people of the state of Michigan, or we, the people of the state of Florida, or whatever state you're in, that have come together to write the Constitution, or the wording of the Declaration of Independence that hangs on my wall, or any other. How about the Article 4, Section 4 of the U.S. Constitution, that Republican form of government, which literally means that it is a government where we retain all the power and authority, and we are delegating certain duties to government officials for the day-to-day functions of government and of collective society infrastructure, or setting up the voting mechanisms or things of that nature. Those are duties that are delegated to it. So in order to follow through on those duties, the government is then delegated specific powers. So that is exactly the kind of philosophy, I guess, or the line of thought I had was talking about those parts of the Constitution. Is there anything else that we...
I didn't see anybody bring in or anything specifically, and I'm checking. We still have plenty of people watching on Rumble, LinkedIn. We have a couple people on LinkedIn, but nothing, no new questions. The rest I haven't figured out how to watch without lagging my computer.
So I see this this comment here from Facebook. Court corruption at its highest levels. They control everything. So I bring that up because if we do nothing, if we the people stand by and do nothing about the blatant disregard for the Constitution, then they will win. They will have control. We will have given up on our God-given liberties and our sovereignty and allowed the government to take over and have control. But we just need to stand our ground and put them all in place by doing all of these things, by influencing elections starting at the most local of levels, right? County, city, municipality, village, that we are following through on lawsuits or, civil rights complaints or complaints to a judicial tenure commission or something of that nature, that we are pursuing these to make sure that instead of them trying to make examples out of freedom fighters like me, or there's so many others that have gone through similar types of situations. They're trying to go after my good friend Sheriff Darleaf because they don't like that he was basically investigating fraud of certain things that happened in November 2020 that will remain nameless on YouTube. They are trying to start trouble in that sense. Or some new friends of mine down in Florida who, file complaints, have filed complaints about things that were being done by government officials, or in this particular example, a deputy for the sheriff's department, that were totally inexcusable and inappropriate, not to mention illegal. And then you might have a sheriff or a prosecuting attorney or whomever that tries to jump in and say, oh, well, we're going to prosecute you for XYZ. We're going to come after you for a felony or for, whatever. Countless people have been essentially been made examples of, and the government is trying to dissuade anyone from ever speaking up or speaking out or standing up to fight back against all this tyranny and other garbage.
And those type of situations specifically are times like if you have your hands full and you're like, what should I get involved with? If you know of somebody that's being retaliated against, go after that first before doing anything else, because it's the bully on the playground. You have the bully going after the person. If the kids back the person being bullied, that bully is going to step down. And until they start seeing the people coming out in force, make your presence known. You don't even have to specifically do anything yourself. Just show up at different things or whatever. Stand, be on a call list. If this person is constantly being targeted, somebody sends out a mass text and boom, everybody just shows up. With Catherine's case in particular, had she not been streaming and people calling the
jail and the sheriff,
I think they were calling both. They most likely would have taken her downtown, and who knows, what they would have done with.
And they were threatening to take my car illegally, take my child and put her in the system, and take me physically into custody. I mean, I was in custody already, but they were threatening to put me in jail and do, what kind of, forcing me to wear a mask when I have asthma and a medical note that says I can't breathe with those on or whatever. It was the people's eyes on that situation. So at any rate, that is definitely something. In fact, Lori, I like that idea that you had about a way to essentially have a band of people where you have a call list or something where if somebody is being targeted by government in some way on a regular basis, then they could send out a quick message and people will just
Did she pause or did I pause?
What's that? I didn't catch what you were saying there, Lori. Okay. I'm not sure if you can see. Again, I apologize to everyone for all of our technical glitches because there's hopefully this new programming will work for us, and it allows us to stream to more places, but we're trying things out. So again, the main purpose of all of this is to say the government does not have the final say unless we let them, that we, the people, have to stand up and do something. So in the end, are you legally, constitutionally required to follow an unconstitutional order? No. But make sure you are strategic in recognizing what you're risking. So, in a situation where there's an order that says you can't share this DVD under, otherwise you'll be held in contempt of court, et cetera, what am I risking? Now, legally, the judge would have no ability to do anything to me, but clearly the judge and the prosecuting attorney and the sheriff's department, deputies, sheriff, everybody, none of them were following the law or following the Constitution so far. So do I want to allow myself to have to stay on defensive mode, or do I want to better position myself so that I'm on offensive mode? That's one of those logistical concerns I'm talking about. That's not a legal conclusion that, you have to follow an unconstitutional order until a higher court tells you otherwise. No, you don't. You don't have to wait for the Supreme Court to recognize your God-given liberties in order for you to have them or exercise them. They are there. They are yours. What you do with them is your choice. So hopefully, with all of that being said, we were able to impart some new knowledge on you, or at the very least, to remind you of some very important and basic concepts that we all need to remember. And like I said, with this new format, going out to new platforms like the podcasting platforms and whatnot, we are going to make some slight changes to things, and hopefully we'll have a Constitution segment recap video for you available on all the platforms we're streaming to today. In addition to that, going to TikTok and a couple of other places, and as well having some sort of document, PDF or whatnot that you can access to be able to see the provisions that we talked about today. And it was quite a few of them. I may not go into quite all of those laws and constitutional provisions because we had to bring up quite a few examples in order to drive home some of these points. But we will nonetheless give you at least the basics in a written format. So those of you who learn that way can benefit. But I encourage you to join us tomorrow. It will not be a live stream or a podcast streamed afterwards. It will be a post. But on Wednesday, we have our Way to Get Involved challenge of the week. Thursday, again, is going to be that video with the written document or PDF or whatnot that you can access through a clickable link. And Friday will be our freedom fighting tools, as usual, again, in a post format. We encourage you, though, to make sure if you like the work that we're doing, if you like the constitutional advocacy and education efforts that have not stopped at all since all of this began, I encourage you to help support us. That can come in a variety of ways. You can donate financially to us, honestly, even $5 or $10, if that's all that you can put towards it, that 5 or 10 can go a long way. We are very conservative about how we spend money that we have. And quite frankly, the money that we've brought in from donations in the last 2-3 years has not begun to cover all the expenses we have going out, the streaming software or the newsletter software, any of that kind of thing, okay? The court fees for filing amicus briefs or whatever. So I ask you to consider supporting us in that way. And our website on the Shop Donate tab has ways that you can donate in that regard. You can also check back to that website, hopefully in a few days or so, if not next week, when it'll hopefully be a little bit better looking and function a little easier. It's the best I could do for the programming skills I have at the time, given especially the time limitations. But anyway, you can donate there. You could also do something as simple as hitting the like button on this video on whichever platform you're on, commenting back and forth when you have questions or thoughts you want to share. Have that engaging conversation because it helps the algorithms and helps get this video in front of even more people. You can hit the share button to the post where this video is, share it with other people on your same platform or share it with other platforms that we're not even on yet. Tell your friends and family verbally about us. Share the website. You can order our car magnets or window decals where there's a QR code that people can scan. You can get those t-shirts I mentioned earlier, the last couple dozen or so that we have sitting in West Michigan, where people can see the website and look it up that way.
And most importantly, pray.
Yes.
Pray for, especially if you can't financially, you're doing the other stuff, but you don't feel like it's enough, pray, because that does tons too.
Yes, we definitely need your continued prayer for us, us as individuals and things that are going on in our family lives, but also that we're continuing to go forward in this mission in the way that God wants us to, and bringing you the best constitutional education and advocacy that we can, and that is pleasing to Him. And not just something that we think is fun and something, to take up our time with. So please make sure to hit the like button, share button, subscribe, hit that notifications button if you're on YouTube or a similar platform, or you can sign up to get alerted when we do go live. And barring any technical difficulties, that we haven't had too many in the 37 episodes that we've done as far as extreme issues, but barring any technical difficulties, we will continue to come live to you every Tuesday at noon for this full episode, and would love to see your feedback about what time we should try to share out our Thursday video, the Constitution segment recap. I'm thinking of something like 5 or 6 p.m. Might be able to catch some of you who have an easier time later on in the day to listen to or watch something like that. So at any rate, thank you so much for joining us here today. And thank you for hanging in there with me as we go through all these technical issues. And we look forward to seeing you in our posts and videos and updates throughout the week. Make sure to subscribe to the restoreFreedomKH.com/updates/feed, RSS feed, so you can get those updates sent to you every time we post something. But with all that being said, I hope you have an absolutely wonderful day, and God bless you and your own fight to restore freedom.